Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting DuckmanCycles in Fiat Garage. I'm your host, the Duckman. I'm here as a 1963 Fiat 600D. And yes, I'm saying that correctly, not without an accent, because Fiat is what we're going to call it from now on. And the reason why is because if you notice in the previous videos, everybody would tell me, fix it again, Tony, like I hadn't heard it before, and they would comment the same things over and over again, like somebody else hadn't said it before. It's like, that's all I was getting in the comments, and I'm really appreciative for the comments, guys, but it's the same thing over and over again. Anyway, I digress. That's why we're going to call it what it is. It's a Fiat with a D. So, here it is, and we're going to be swapping out the engine in here. Now, from what I understand on this, this is a 750cc 600D engine. Now, I think they also came in a 600cc variant. This is not a Fiat 500. This actually does have a 4-cylinder engine. You see the spark plug wires going out of here. It's an inline 4. And this produces, I think, roughly 30 horsepower. The engine it's going to go in is the Abarth 850cc, which has a custom tune on it, to 60 horsepower. Ooh! In other words, it should make about as much horsepower as my fastback does, but in a much smaller package. So this little guy should have a little bit of pep. Is it going to be fast? Nah. But it's going to move a lot better than it would have otherwise, you know, off the factory floor. So, the engine's got to come out. It looks like, just real quickly here, this rear valance, or apron, as I would call it in the Volkswagen. I'm going to use a lot of Volkswagen terms too, by the way, because I am not educated on these at all. And the last 2 weeks this thing has been here. It's been raining at 10 days out of the 14 days. So I've had a lot of time to do a little bit of research on this thing. But yes, the rear valance here is actually an engine mount. So this has to come out. The bumpers come off with a bolt underneath here and here. Then the brackets come out. There's 4 bolts on each side. Looks like it's actually missing a couple of them. This rear valance thing comes out. The engine, I don't know if it then collapses. It may be the only rear mount that it has. It might fall down. So I'm going to have to look at that. The exhaust, of course, gets unbolted. Got to take the belt off. Got to disconnect some other cooling, some wiring, which is really not much for wires. Is that a Bosch Blue Coil? I think it might be. Might be the same as what goes on there. Anyway, the last thing, which was very, very interesting, the manual said, hey, go behind the rear seat. These suicide doors are the death of me, I'll tell you what. And pull out the cover, and you can get to the engine. Now, what does this remind you of? Comment down below. If you've been following me for a little while, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. Anyways, the engine mount bolts are right here. Easily accessible. And I think there's 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I don't think there's any on the bottom. I'll consult the manual just to double check on that to make sure I'm correct. But hopefully I should be able to separate the engine from the transmission without having to pull out the whole transmission at the same time. That's the goal. Now, the cover that was supposed to be in here is not here. I don't know why, but not my car. So I'm just taking care of this one as per what I was told by the owner. Now, I'm beginning to fall in love with this car a little bit, even though I haven't done any work on it yet. And the surprising thing is, I actually fit in it. You know, all 6'3" and 280 something pounds of me actually fits in here. But when I'm sitting in the driver's seat, it's much easier with the window open because my big ass shoulders want to stick out through here. It seems to be the best way to sit in this thing. But anyway, I digress. You know what comes next. Licky, like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to pluck that dingle belly so you get updates every time I upload a video. Check out DuckShit.net for all of my different social media links. And we'll be back, well, right after this intro. And we're going to start pulling this engine out. Hopefully, before it gets dark today, we'll have this engine out. And then we'll start transferring parts from this engine to the new engine in the next video. And then the next video will be reassembly. And then probably the 4th video will be some kind of a test drive. So we'll see what's happening with this one. But that's the goal. Let's see if we can get this engine out of here. Man, look. This is the kind of stuff I'm dealing with here. I don't know who had this before. But I really don't like when I have to jump into the middle of somebody else's project. Especially one like this where I'm not really familiar with it. Because then I gotta fix somebody else's problems too. Not just the car's problem, but somebody else's problems they've introduced. And that's just what I've noticed here. Anyway, I imagine that's the fuel pump. This is probably the fuel inlet. Maybe they were replacing a line. Or maybe they were siphoning it from a gas tank. I don't know. Anyway, let's start tearing this thing apart. Alright, this manual is interesting. Just looking in here, it appears somebody translated from Italian directly to English, like literally, rather than a person translating it, because some of the wording is just a little weird. But what it's telling me to do first is to remove the cover, which of course is already out, and remove the cover over the cover. Of course, that's gone already too. Then it says remove the starter wire, which I don't think I need to do. There's no battery in this thing right now anyway. I don't think the starter is going to come out with the engine. I'm going to leave the starter where it's at until something tells me that I need to remove the starter, in which case then we'll disconnect the battery. But it told me to start by removing the 2 top engine mount screws. And it calls them not bolts, but screws, which again is an interesting choice of terms. But they're 19s. Gladly they're metric. That one was already loose. That wasn't good. Like I said, I'm cleaning up after somebody else in here. So, that's good. How about this one over here? Yeah, that one was loose too. Like I said, somebody else was already in here. I know Wild Bill had this at one point too, but I don't know how deep he got into it. I know he did say that the engine that's in here is not worth saving. It's got its own problems, and if we got a replacement engine, especially if it's a performance engine, just install it, right? Makes a lot more sense to me too. So, I'm going to finish removing these bolts from here. This is going to be the boring part, you guys. You're going to get extremely bored just watching me just turn this thing slowly, and I've had enough already. So, alright, I got that one bolt out. There it is from that side. This side, however, the bolt hits the starter. Now, the instructions don't say to remove the starter. It just says to remove the starter wire. Now, that would make sense if you wanted to remove the starter, but it doesn't tell you to remove the starter. But clearly, I'm not going to be able to do this without removing the starter completely. This is one of those weird designs that never should have ought to been. So, I'm going to have to practice a little bit of my Italian heritage, because, yeah, I'm mostly German, but Dad's side, we had just a drop of Sicilian. So there is a little bit of Italian in me there. And I'm going to have to practice the Italian that I know, which is very little. But right there, vaffanculo. Fucking bastard. Anyway, I guess that starter's going to have to come out. So anyway, 13mm wrench. At least I recognize that size, because those things are found all over Volkswagens. Let me pull this out of here. See what kind of a fight this thing's going to give me here. And of course, I'm working on the whole car one-handedly, which you might notice. So I'm going to get to say, hey, I replaced the Fiat engine with one hand behind my back. Although technically it was one hand in the front, because I'm holding the camera. Can I get that on there? Now, you know what else? This is probably going to have to come out next, too. That's the clutch return spring. Again, vaffanculo. This is incredible. Oh, man. Alright, well, we're going to need 2 hands. We're going to pull that spring off of there. I'm going to get a set of pliers for that. And then we're going to attack that 13mm underneath there. And hopefully the starter will pull straight out. Unless there's another bolt holding it in somewhere. I probably should consult the manual for that as well. But, well, so far, not so good. Alright. This nut, which was under here, was a super pain in the ass to pull out because it was sticking just enough that it didn't want to turn, and there's really no good way to get a wrench in here. So I got about like a 1/12 of a turn on it at a time, and I couldn't loosen it with my fingers even when it was loose. Pain in the ass is what it was. I'm already cursing at this car. I don't believe it. First couple bolts and I'm already angry at the thing. I'll do it again. Vaffanculo! Managgia de puttana. Okay. Here's another one of the engine bolts down there. And this is probably why they told you to pull the starter wire out. But I'm going to be careful here, despite the battery not being in there anyway. And here's one of the other engine mount bolts down there. And I think that's all of them. I don't think there's any underneath. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out soon enough. But that's where we're at. Alright, let's see what the manual says to do now. Alright, the manual says to remove the right center apron. Is it the right or is it the center? There's only one apron. It's strictly center. Maybe they mean the right side bolts? This is actually the left, technically. This would be the right side bolt. I do know the bumper has to come off. That's probably what they're talking about, is getting these bolts out from the bumper. Because then I think the apron will start to come loose. I may not even have to remove these mounts, actually. We're going to find out in just a minute here. Alright, well, that's where we're at. Now let's see, what size bolts are these under here? That might also be a 13. No, it's bigger than that. Okay. Well, it's certainly not the 19 we had. Let's put a ratchet on that, though, instead of a wrench, because that one we can actually get a tool on. But this side, on the other hand, you can barely see it in there because it's so damn dark. That side is probably just going to be a regular flat wrench. So I don't think I'm getting in there with a tool too easily. Even if I attack it from the other side, the cooling line is in the way. And that's one of the coolant hoses down there. So that's got to come off too anyway. And that's probably how you're going to drain it. I bet there's no drain plug. You probably pull the hose off on the bottom like a Suzuki motorcycle. Alright. Here we are again. Turns out this bolt is also loose. Is it coming out or is it just spinning around? I figure this is a stud or a captive carriage bolt or something. No, it's coming off. It's coming. Oh, there's a little tiny nut there. I wonder what that's for. Don't know. Let's not lose it. It looks like one of the little nuts that comes off of a Volkswagen generator. Okay, here's our washers on the backside here, as Wild Bill would say. Here's our bumper coming out. Yeah, good. Does the apron come out with it? Is it that simple? No, doesn't appear to be. I sure hope those nuts don't have to come out too, because I don't know how I'm going to get to those, to be quite honest with you. Especially on this side. Oh man. Certainly not a Volkswagen. This is definitely not a Volkswagen. Wow. Alright. Pull that out of there. Let's get some of this stuff out the way. That one's clear. Let's do the same with the other side. Alright, that nut under there wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I think this bumper will probably just pull right out. And it did. Look at that. And I saw a washer fall down a second ago. Here it is. That's one of the washers to the bumper mounts. Okay. What we're going to do here is we're going to put the little washers and nuts and things back on the space where they go. So that way these things don't get lost as we're shuffling things around, because it might be a couple days until I get to this again to get it put back together. Or of course it could rain, and that's always a possibility. You know what, these were on there, weren't they? Yep. These are only on one side though, which is what's interesting. The other side didn't have any such washers. Okay, well, there we go. I'll put that in the car. I'll do the same with the one on the other side. Well, the next line in the manual says, and this is in the same line, remove the flywheel cover. The what? The flywheel's between the engine and the transmission, and I can't foresee there being any cover that goes to it. What? And then the second thing was to unbolt the exhaust, and this is in the same sentence. I don't know. We'll come back to that, I'm sure, because if there's something like a flywheel cover or some weird shit that I don't understand, I'm sure it'll come back to bite me. But anyway, these nuts are rusty. I'm going to put a little penetrating oil on them first. This Duckman likes to get a little penetration to get a nut off. Here we go. Let it sit for a minute. We'll come on back, and we'll get those unbolted. Alright, well, we got the exhaust disconnected from here. And while we were underneath the car, to remove two more bolts that attach the muff to the bottom of the oil pan right under here, I discovered, boom, there is a flywheel cover. It looks like there's one 8 or 10 millimeter bolt. I can't tell which from this distance. You know, it might be bigger than that. Maybe it's 11, now it's 10. That's going to be our flywheel cover. So, oh boy, that doesn't want to come out. Oh, there it goes. Alright, well, we'll pull that off, and then I imagine we're going to see teeth on the bottom of the flywheel here. And this muff is, so I'm going to use sheet metal screws to hold the cover to the body, which is uglier than shit. But we're going to have to remove that to get the muff completely out of the way. And this cover, I believe, is going to come off now. Now, it looks like there might be another bolt or two holding it in. Okay, well, we'll come back to that in a minute. Alright, so this is the mysterious flywheel cover. It had 3 bolts in it. So now it's effectively off, and you can see the flywheel up under there. Alright, good. We'll go back top side, see if we can get some more bolts removed. You know, the next step was to remove the exhaust, but we already got that taken care of because I wasn't going to get it off those studs without actually removing the muff from the bottom. Alright, next step is to drain the radiator by removing the cap. I could probably just loosen it, but I'm going to remove it completely like the instructions say. And then it says, get under the car and open your cock. And I kid you not, that's its exact words. Open your cock. Alright, where's my cock? That might be it. Well, I can't get this, oh boy. Yeah, that might work. It's gonna get heavy though. There's any coolant in it. Oh, and it won't turn, of course. I might need to put a wrench on that. Well, I hope that's it anyway. I don't even know. Alright, well, let's see what I got for a tool that I can put on there. Probably said channel locks or something. It's pretty cool. You know you got a good one when you need channel locks to open your cock. Okay. Well, I have opened my cock, and now it's pissing. It's nice and clear, so there's clearly no coolant in it. It's just water. When I say coolant, I mean there's no antifreeze. I wonder how long that's going to take to coming out something that's no bigger than my pee hole. This might take a while, and I guess I gotta wait for it. And here we are several minutes later, and not very much came out of there. So I'd say it was probably a dry cooling system anyway, because again, I'm working on somebody else's project. Alright, well that's good. Let's see what we gotta do next. Alright, the next stuff is apparently pretty logical. Disconnect fuel line, already disconnected. Disconnect the oil sender, which I think is this one. Get that out of there and out of the way. It said take the air cleaner off. Again, makes logical sense to get that out of the way. Let's put this over here where it's not going to get mashed up. That is a tiny little carburetor on there, isn't it? I wonder who makes it. It looks very much like a Solex. It might be. Okay, need to remove the vacuum line on the distributor is what it said. I don't see a vacuum line on the distributor. No, it's like a 009. Doesn't have one. Oh, piece of shit. This wire does have to come off though, because it's going to be separated from the engine and the body. So I do have to pull that wire out. This wire is also going to come out of there. I'm going to put a little tape on these and label them, because I don't want to try to figure out which cylinder is which later on. I'd rather just have them right to begin with, rather than sorting. Alright, fuel line's out of the way. I'll remove this, and then we'll see what else is in the manual. Oh, there's our vacuum line, right there. It's missing. And this doesn't have a bung on it, so maybe it is like a 009. Yeah, I don't see a vacuum advance thing on it. What the hell is this? We're experimenting. I have no idea what this is. Oh, that's where your oil... You put oil in for the distributor. And there's a little pad in there. It's with the oil soaked. It's like what you find on my lathe has those. Okay. There's another vacuum line here that goes to nothing. Alright, we're going to be doing some shuffling with vacuum stuff, and I got to find out if this is even the right distributor. If we have another case of the 009s, and that distributor is wrong, because it is, supposed to have a proper vacuum advance, and it does not, we may have other problems here. And I do need to remove the throttle linkage, so it looks like this cable, this little thing, looks like it unscrews from here, slides out, and then the cable comes off. Pretty standard stuff, but that definitely needs to come out of the way. And I don't even know what that is. This is the throttle, or is that a choke? No, it's a manually activated choke on the top here, so that's got to come out too. In fact, it's already coming apart. It's not even installed properly. So we get that out of there too. Great. Well, there's not a whole lot left. Okay, it does appear that I will have to remove these bolts that are in here. See if I can give you guys a little more light. and not so much. But anyway, there's little nuts that are underneath here that hold in the rear valence. That is holding up the rear engine, and those are extremely hard to get to because they're like buried behind everything. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that yet, but we'll figure it out. I do need to also disconnect the coolant line, which is right here. So I think I can just disconnect those 2 hose clamps and slide it out of the way. And then after that, I just have to remove the rest of the bolts from the engine, and then it should come loose. Now, the Fiat manual describes attaching a cherry picker to the top of this engine to kind of lift it up and out. But I think what we're going to do, and I've seen this done on YouTube in my research, is some people put a jack underneath it and just pull it straight back. Because there's nothing that's impeding it, and as long as the engine doesn't want to tip over or fall down, it should be safe. It should be. So I think that's how we're going to do it. We're just going to pull it straight out. So, anyway, I just have to attack the rest of those bolts, and then we'll get to it and see what else is going on here. Yeah, this is just so different from a Volkswagen, just so incredibly different. Being an inline 4, there's not a whole lot of room in there, but wouldn't it be fun if you put a K20 in here from an RSX? Even with a stock tune on it. Holy shit, this thing would be fast. Alright, let's keep at it. I managed to wrestle those nuts out of here. One there, one on the bottom, and then the one over here on the top and the one on the bottom. These actually were easier to get out than I thought. I could get a ratchet on those. It wasn't too awfully bad. I couldn't get much of a turn in it, though. The one up on the top here, ratchet on. Bottom one, that one took a wrench and a little turn at a time until it finally came out. Would it have been easier to remove this? I don't know. The manual didn't tell me to, but maybe next time we'll try that. Alright, well, the manual says the next thing we need to do is loosen the engine mount bolts, and I think it's suggested on the bottom, but the language again in that manual was a little finicky. So, I don't know. But one of the illustrations does show the engine coming straight back and this panel being removed before the engine comes completely out. So, there's a nut here. It looks like it's a 17 millimeter. I'm going to get that loose, just loose, and then we'll observe what happens. If the engine tries to fall down, well, then we're going to stop right there because I got to get a support under the engine. In addition to that, since I got that panel loose here, it's been raining on the ground. I mean, like, a lot of water is coming out. I guess this panel is hollow and it seems to be holding moisture, which is not good. That will cause it to rust, and rust badly. Of course, I don't see any puddles in here. There's just a little bit of the croil that I use for penetrating on the nuts. But yeah, I don't see any moisture in there at all, so it's got to be coming out from the inside of this panel. In fact, it is hollow. I imagine there's no weep holes in the bottom of it, but needs to be. You know, I guess that's something I'll get into here when we get that panel off. Just drill a couple of little safety holes in there just to make sure any moisture that gets in can get out, which I'm not even sure where it was getting in from. Yeah, maybe from the bumper bolts. Doesn't appear to be too much else on the top unless it's getting in through the pinch wells up here. Got that nut loose. Take the washer off of here too. I think there's a lock washer over there also. Alright. Oh, look at that. The whole mount comes out of there. And that feels captive. Alright. See if this panel does anything. You know, it's in there pretty good. It looks like it's actually starting to come out on its own, but it doesn't want to budge. Alright. Put the jack under the oil pan. You get a piece of wood for the top of it. Should have had the camera up on a tripod for this one, but once I started to lift up that engine, and I mean I didn't put much, support on it at all, just a little bit, this apron started to come out. You see the gap opened up over here. So it's probably, oh, there it comes. There it comes. Come on, release. There it is. Ooh, and it is full of water. Look at it pissing. Look at that. Oh my God. Alright, well, we're going to not stain my driveway with all the rusty water. We'll just put it over here and let it finish draining out. Alright. Now, if I let this jack down just a little bit, is the engine and transmission both going to fall? Or do they have some kind of a mid-mount I don't know. Let's see. Well, it looks like the engine is still solid. Okay, that's good to know. Good to know. So, it might have been a harmonic stabilizer, kind of like what the Type 3 has in the back. It's not actually supposed to cop the weight of the engine, rather it just keeps vibration dampened. Okay, good. Harmonic stabilizer. Starting to get a little dark out here, so I don't know how well you can see this, but right here is one of the last two engine bolts that's got to come out. The manual calls to remove the last two long bolts, and that appears to be longer than the ones that were on top. So we'll get those out. Engine is supported over here by the jack, so it should be safe in pulling those out. I'll be real careful under here. Of course, it's going to align itself on the input shaft anyway, but the driveway here is a little angled, so I might want to scoot backwards. I'll be careful, but we'll get this thing out. Trying to get this done before it gets pitch black out here, and I think this is going to be the last thing that needs to come out. Here's hoping. Cross your fingers, guys. This has been a lot of work. Alright, here comes the fun part, just as it's starting to get dark. But I mentioned the radiator hose before. I actually have it removed. There's one on the bottom also. We got that out of there. I'm going to set up a light out here, because I'm going to set the camera up right about here as I'm pulling this engine out, because I think it's free. As soon as I removed the radiator hose on the bottom, it actually started to move all by itself. But I was curious how the fan's separated from the housing, and it looks like there's no hardware that holds it together. That's why it wasn't mentioned in the manual. So, alright, well, here we go. Fun times. I got a light set up over here. That's going to work out a whole lot better, because when I pull this engine out, and if I drop it or smash my toe or something, I got to get it on a video, or it's just not worth it, right? Anyways, I disconnected the radiator hose here, or radiator as we say where I come from. Down underneath there's also another radiator hose. I disconnected that also. When I pulled that out, the fan started to come off the radiator itself. Now I was curious what separated that. The thing has no bolts in it, and the instruction manual didn't call for removing anything. So the hose was actually holding the engine in the car, which is a little scary, but it should be ready to come out now. I'm just looking over everything else to make sure it's not hung up on anything. It looks like all of our wires are off. I got all of our cables off. The transmission is staying in. Radiator is out. And this whole fan assembly, which includes the water pump there, all comes out as one piece. So we'll get the camera set up right over here, and let's start pulling on this thing and see what kind of disaster we end up with. Because I don't know what I'm doing. This is my first Fiat. Or Fiat. Fix it again, Duckman. Alright. Here we go, guys. This is either going to be hugely horrible and maybe make me upset, or it's going to come right out like it's supposed to. Well, it appears that it's separating from the transmission. Hey, why not? I guess I got to get in there with a flashlight and start looking. I have no idea what's going on down there. It's a pain in my ass. Fangool. Alright, I can see down the backside here, and I know you can't, between the bell housing and the engine block. And I can get in there with a pry bar, because it has moved a bit. And I think, yep, here it goes. Balance this thing, because I got a feeling it's going to want to fall to the right. It's coming out. I'm not even prying hard, it's coming out little by little. Oh, I think we're free. Okay. Here it comes. I thought we were free. Here we gotta go up. That was it, had to go up. Alright, still feels like we're attached to something. No, what are we attached to? I don't see anything. Looks like we're just hitting the bumper brace there. We should go there it is. Okay. You do have one wire hanging off the generator. I did forget that. So that one's got to come off right there. Not a big deal. It's 10 millimeter. I got the wrench right here. I'm going to remove that real quick. I'm not even going to let go of the engine, even though it feels like it's not going anywhere. Yeah, it's supported there. Guess I missed that step in the manual. I don't remember reading it. Remove generator wire. Okay, well. Get that off of there. There it is. The engine weighs nothing. Alright. I got it pretty well balanced where it's sitting too. Turn it this way. Lay it down. There it is. We got a street singer coming down the road. So if you hear a bunch of noise, that's what it is. But it's out. Fantastic. Alright, got us a dolly here. Put that down. Back this camera up just a little bit. You guys can see a little better, so what I'm about to do. I'm going to put the engine onto that dolly. And as I said, it seems pretty light. My back is bothering me already. It's not because I do any of this stuff, it's actually hereditary. My whole life it's been that way. It's bothered me since I was a kid. So, hopefully I don't blow the damn thing out because I have to put the other engine back in. Yeah, this is probably a bad idea. My back don't feel right already. Alright, we're gonna do it anyway. Gotta make a good video, you guys. This is for you. My sacrifice. It actually wasn't too bad at all. Alright, it's out. And look at all the rusty water rolling down the driveway here, coming out of that pump. I gotta come out here with the hose and clean that all up. It's gonna stain the crap out of the driveway. Alright, I guess the last thing to do tonight is pick up all the tools, but before we get into any of that, I guess I should... Well, there it is, you guys. Engine compartment is completely empty. All that's left in there anymore is the radiator and the coil. Yes, radiator. I'm going to say radiator because it rhymes with gladiator. I don't want to hear anything from anybody about it, and I often do. But where I come from, it's a radiator. Anyways, the engine is out. Very happy for that. Was a lot more work than what I expected. I've never worked on one of these before. I'm sure with a little bit of experience, I probably could do it in about half the time. But this was a 2-day project. Even though it looked like it was over 1 day, it was a 2-day project. It's out. Going back in, I think I'll be a little more experienced with it. The new engine should go in a little easier. However, some of the accessories on the other engine are a little different. So I'm hoping we have everything we need on this engine that will fit onto the other engine to make it go back in. But we'll see. That'll be the next video for sure. Get the engine parts switched over and then get the new engine inserted right into this car. Well, I guess that's going to be it for tonight. It's getting cold out here. It's about 43 degrees right now. Yeah, I'm just starting to see my breath. I don't know if the camera can see it, but I can. Anyway, a little chilly out here. Thankfully, no wind, but that's about as cold as I think it's going to get tonight. That's actually kind of nice when you're working, but it sucks if you're just kind of, hanging around outside or something. You don't want to, anyway. Thanks, you guys, for watching. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and probably tomorrow I'll be back with another Small Engine Sunday video, because I think this video is going up on Saturday. So watch for it. Thanks again. Appreciate you guys, and as always, you know what to do. Thanks for watching.